Welcome back. My name is Drew, and in this section of the Pathway to Prayer, we've been exploring Psalm 55, which really takes on this different tone as the author is trying to address fear in his life and kind of asking for ourselves, how do I handle fear in prayer when I'm just talking to God? And so we're digging a little deeper into Psalm 55 today, and I'm actually looking at page 23 because dig deeper question number 4 I think is one of kind of the fun ones. You got to do a little detective work, but you start to discover things in the Bible that you may not have even known were there. So this is what it says. Compare Psalm 55:22, okay, that's the one we're looking at, Psalm 55, to 1 Peter 5:6 and 7. It says, David and Peter lived hundreds of years apart, yet shared the same confidence in God. So how did that impact them, and how does it impact you? Well, I realize I don't know how it impacts me if I don't know what it says. So I thought I would show you this because one of my favorite tools, I love to use the hard copy of my Bible. It helps me when I'm reading it to be less distracted if I can just take paper that doesn't have any apps or anything on it. But another great tool is actually Blue Letter Bible is my favorite Bible app. And it's easy in here, even if I don't know the order of the books, to pull up, New Testament, 1 Peter, chapter 5, and just scroll down to verses 6 and 7. So check this out. I'll show you both of these at once. If you go to Psalm 55:22, it says, cast your burden on the Lord, and he shall sustain you. I come over to 1 Peter, it says, cast all your care upon him, for he cares for you. Those do sound remarkably similar. In fact, I realize that kind of what this question is pointing to is the reality that David lived hundreds of years before Jesus, but Peter was a contemporary of Jesus. He was one of Jesus' closest friends. So if anybody should be able to handle fear, shouldn't it be a guy who met the God-man, the Savior in the flesh? And yet Peter struggled with fear too. And when Peter, personal friend of Jesus, needed encouragement, he still came back to Psalm 55. To repeat those words to himself, cast your cares upon him because he cares for you. I think that ability to look back, to see the journeys that other people have been through, things that they've experienced that might be similar to our own, is one of the most encouraging ways that I get a sense in my own prayer time that God really does answer prayer, that I really can rely on him because I've heard those stories from other people. And I've begun to live them and experience them for myself. And I bumped into one of those just a couple of weeks ago. I was going through books in my basement. You know how when you move into a new house, you're supposed to unload the books within, 20 years or something like that? So I'm finally going through the books. And some of the books are books that were given to me by my grandpa. And I just remember these sweet moments like standing with him at the bookshelf in their home or at the cabin on the lake in front of that bookshelf as he is hand-selecting books. And not just unloading them all at once, but saying, Drew, I think you might like this one. Hey, I think this one would encourage you. What a cool moment that was for me to share with him because he passed away about 2 years ago. So looking through those books again, I pulled out of one of them this little piece of paper. And I can't tell you how perfect it felt for this moment right now in 2020 with the economy doing what it's doing because COVID-19 is doing what it's doing. Because the top of this paper was labeled Predictions for 2009. My grandpa wrote this at the end of 2008 after the economy had tanked with so many people afraid about their finances and the future. And I won't read all of this to you, but here were some of his predictions. He predicted that in the next year, God will still pour out his blessings upon all who love and obey him. People will still overcome evil behavior because they've been transformed by the power of God. People will still come to know Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. And there's more here, but as I read these, none of them are about finances, none of them are about the economy. Every single one of them is about who God is, what he does to help us change, to help draw us into relationship with him, regardless of what's going on around us. I can't tell you the moment of peace that I felt there And that's what made me realize as I looked at this question, I'm like Peter, looking back at my grandpa's experience and what he learned about God. Just as Peter, in these verses, looks back to Psalm 55, what David learned about God, and how in the moment of his greatest fear, there were things about God that were always true. Those predictions, those words of David could be repeated every year, no matter what's happening. So I encourage you. Maybe you like to do that deep dive homework, look up the other verses, write out some things. I don't know how you're using this tool. But as you do, it may be that there's somebody in your life, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, somebody who's talked to you about faith that might be able to encourage you in that way, or something they've shared with you before that can give you a little bit more of an insight about who God is and how he would help you in your fear.